Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life. Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. This podcast is being sponsored by Ritual+Shelter. Are you looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual+Shelter online or in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics such as energy healing, Reiki, chakras, auras, accessing the Akashic Records, shadow work, astrology, and earth-based healing. You can also find herbal teas and tinctures alongside crystals and oils to help establish a mindful mindset and fluid ambience before meditation, ritual work, and reflection. Ritual+Shelter is dedicated to providing one-on-one, in-depth conversations with customers to help them find the most efficient healing methods and resources that match the customer's unique interests and energy. They offer tarot sessions as well as Reiki, soundbowl, and crystal healing. Visit ritualshelter.com to book an appointment and bring peace back to the body, mind, and spirit. So I'm back from my adventures in Santa Fe. What an amazing trip. The landscape was magnificent. The Native American dances at the Cochiti Pueblo were very inspiring. All their dedication to rituals and family, amazing. A huge shout out to Kate Jenkins for her stamina and focus. It was hot. And a shout out to all that she's doing with Native Strength Revolution. I checked out a retreat venue, the OHA, which, yes, I will be hosting a retreat in 2025. The art, the galleries, the cultures, the hot springs, I loved it all. I'm still integrating it and will be writing more and more on my blog over at Substack, Soul Musings, Confessions of an Empowered Empath. Check it out. So as this podcast goes to air, we've moved into the sun sign of Leo. Leo is bold and reminds us to feel pride in our lives. The thing I love so much about Leo energy is that it brings us courage. Courage to stand in our truth and courage to make changes. Change isn't easy, but so needed at this time. Courage brings in the energy of the heart, which helps to raise your vibration to make these changes from a loving perspective. Right now, with everything going on in the world, the tendency is to just hold on. Hold what you got, as my dad would say, but that creates stagnation. Leo holds the element of fire, which helps to transmute the stuck emotions, bringing flow back into your life. It is a time to stand up for you and what you believe in. Know thyself to be true. Maybe you don't know what that is for you. And that's where a spiritual mentor can be so helpful in guiding you to your soul and the messages of your purpose. I wanted to offer another testimonial from a private client, Allison. Allison shifted so much in her coaching work, learning tools, techniques, and raising her vibration. She quickly adapted these teachings and expanded her coaching practice. Let's hear what she has to say.
I'm Allison KT of The Grounded Empath, and this past year I had the immense pleasure of working with Terry Ann Hyman, and I cannot speak highly enough of this experience. I had a desire to deepen my knowledge of spiritual tools for my own personal practice, but also to use with clients. And I really wanted to learn in a way that respected the traditions. And that is exactly what I found in working with Terry. She has either studied it or has interviewed somebody who has and is an expert in it for her podcast. And it seemed like every question I had about any topic, she had an answer for or could direct me to a resource. It was truly like my own seminary course or my own private college level study to broaden my knowledge. It was incredible. And I truly feel like this program helped me build my confidence in my business as a spiritual practitioner, but also it helped me heal to be able to step into that in learning about Reiki and receiving Reiki from Terry in doing readings and learning how to tune into my own intuition, I feel like I healed in a way that allowed me to truly step into this version of myself. Prior to working with Terry, I knew I was intuitive. I had a desire to learn more, but I didn't trust in myself or in my gifts. And so having that, support coming in of seeing Terry time and time again and having her amplify me and tell me what I'm, point me in the right direction and to help me see my gifts and abilities, it was incredible and truly grew me as a human and as a healer.
So yes, I am a spiritual mentor and I help people tap into their spirit and even learn more about themselves. I have many ways in which I can guide you through. And so I extend my offer to you to schedule a complimentary spiritual upgrade breakthrough call with me. Let's talk about how I can guide you into building your practice, help you move through the difficulties in life, transitions, and find the love of your soul that will inspire you to step forward. Links will be in the show notes. In today's episode, I continue the conversation on how important it is to be in touch with Mother Earth's sacred elements. She has so much to teach us. There is so much wisdom and magic in sitting with the plants, the animals, the elementals, the divas, all of it. My guest is Matthew Wood, a very well-known herbalist and teacher. His latest book is A Shamanic Herbal, Plant Teachers and Animal Medicines. In this episode, we talked about his background and knowledge, the plants and their relationship to animals, how they can help us, how plants are the universal language of shamans, spiritual lessons personified in animal medicine, bear medicine, turtle medicine, alligator medicine, and more. Before we begin, let's take a moment to pause, breathe, and set an intention for where you are. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes. Take a nice deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, release the breath all the way down, slowing down. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. Exhale, bringing the breath all the way down, calling all your energy into you. Call it in. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. Exhale, all the way back down, grounding. Calling in the spiritual body to align right on top of the physical, the emotional, the mental bodies, centering. Take another deep inhale, breathing up the body. And now, as you exhale, dropping into the heart, right into the deepest part of your heart, feeling that connection, your spirit and the greater spirit. Know that you are loved, guided, protected, feeling all this energy coming in around you as we call in the masters, the teachers, the archangels for joy and love, calling in the crystal beings for amusement, magnification, calling in the plant beings as well. Taking its time to notice where you are on this great wheel of life. Here where I am, we find ourselves in the season of summer. And as I teach in the medicine wheel, the direction of the south, we notice our growth. We find the love and patience for our life. The divine feminine is at work, birthing, growing. We call in the directions for guidance and protection to the south, the west, the north, and the east. Above us, Father Sun. Below us, Mother Earth. Right into the very center, deep into your heart, taking a moment, setting an intention. See it, hear it, feel it, know it. And allow the elevated emotions, how you want to feel, to radiate out all around you, setting your energy, raising your vibration. Taking one more deep inhale. And exhale. Feel the heart opened. Feel that third eye illuminating. And as you're ready, blinking the eyes back open, coming back. My guest today is Matthew Wood. He has been a practicing herbalist for more than 40 years. He is an internationally known teacher and author with more than 10 books to his credit, including the Book of Herbal Medicine, The Earthwise Herbal, Holistic Medicine, and the Extracellular Matrix, and a Shaman Herbal, which is what we will be talking about today. Matthew has an MSc in Herbal Medicine from the Scottish School of Herbal Medicine, accredited University of Wales. He lives in the Midwest. So let us welcome Matthew to the show. Welcome, Matthew.
Greetings.
Greetings. Great to have you here. I'm so excited about your book coming forward. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's about my 10th or 11th, I forget.
Okay, I am humbled. There you go. That is awesome. It's a big project writing books and putting knowledge out into the world. So good for you. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background. What led you to begin working with plant medicine?
Well, let's see. When I was 2 weeks old, my dad got hired as a teacher for the BIA on the Seminole Indian Res in Big Cypress Swamp in the Everglades, 50 miles by dirt road. The dirt road been in for 1 year to Immokalee, to the nearest village and town. And so I grew up next 2 years in a remote Native American village where English was really definitely a second language. And so I really picked up on the thinking and speech patterns of that world. My dad said I could understand. It would be called Miccosukee, is that language there, Seminole, and uh, and English, but I didn't speak until we left when I was 2 plus. And but I really feel I was entrained in the speech and thinking patterns of that world, and that is not where there's a rational type of explanation, if then the syllogism and one thing follows another in a rational manner. It's not that they're irrational, but they think differently. And that would be more like you just explain exactly what you saw, you don't elaborate. And then if you want to teach somebody, you like really use comparisons or word plays. If you don't have the syllogism to say if then, your teaching has to be in a completely different way. You have to tell a story that matches what you want the person to learn. And the person has to be able to make that connection. It's a learn on a deserve to know basis. That's the Native American approach. And just to give you an idea of how remote that was, in 1954, when we arrived, they'd been in treaty relationship with the federal government for 18 years, if you can imagine that. That's how, and there still were Miccosukes or Seminoles that were not signed, living in the bush until 1963. So, so it was a nearly pre-Columbian world in some ways. And so that really set me off in a different way. I needed to learn a different way of language from English. I really had a hard time understanding and teaching and speaking in English. I just saw a little kid about, 3, 4, and she was like, if, and then, and it's like, wow, I understand where she's at. And and so when I was 18, 19, 20, then someone did my astrological chart and I was like, bing, like, wow, this is language of energy patterns. And that is what bear medicine, that's what the animal medicines are too. So they are a more ancient fashion, but what is, zodiac means circle of animals. So that is the same kind of thinking pattern. And so that is the language of another time and place, unfortunately, or it's still my time and place. And still I recommend that people learn to think that way. And I go through that. The Greeks were there when that language split occurred, when rationality was invented by Plato, according to Aristotle. and they named Phosis. That's the ancient way of speech where you just explain exactly what you see in your mind or in the world, and then you make word plays to help people to understand more deeply. So I do describe that in the book because it's very, very important. We need to realize that there's more than one way to think. In fact, this doesn't even have a name in English. That shows how acknowledged this other way of speaking is, which is how all the indigenous people in the world speak. And we don't even have a name for it or even realize that they're like, speaking a different way. So that's actually, you asked me before we started mission, that's one of the missions of this book and of the remaining time I have on Earth here is to try to point out the importance of this way of thinking and speaking and that to bridge more so that it's a valid way, even though it gets judged. It's like in I want to say our culture, Western cultures. I don't really like to identify with it. In this culture, uh, it's like people, if you're not rational, oh, he's irrational. I mean, that's like the end of the line, you know. It's not like, oh, he's intuitive, like, maybe that's acceptable, but it's not. It's like, oh, alarm limit, alarm bell, intuition. So,
Well, I think it's important that we have different ways of looking at the world. I mean, I tend to medicine well, and I was just talking about that because it's a circular energy. And we can look
yep,
at life differently instead of so dependent on linear and what we
yep.
think we're supposed to look at and do during the year. So I totally get it. And it actually now makes sense because I'm so used to like looking at like plant books and they're going to tell you the name and they're going to tell you the property. And I flipped to it and I literally opened right to like bear medicine, the Osha root. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what he's talking about. So it was very fascinating that you put these stories together that can help us understand more. Because I know I have trouble remembering plant names.
Yeah, well, and I mean in OSHA, that means bear in Spanish. So it's like some of this was pretty well, translated into the language of the early settlers. Another bear medicine is called bear root. Angelica, which comes from Europe, that name, and there is an American Angelica, pretty much cognate, can be used the same way, pretty much. That's sometimes called grizzly bear medicine. So that would be a native, that wouldn't be a kind of regular speak. Yeah.
I remember using OSHA for my asthma, my
Oh,
breathing, and
yeah.
we'd use it in the lodge, and it was like take it in. And I remember Joanna, our friend Joanna,
Mm.
was saying it's like the hugging herb,
Yeah.
like you like just want to be enveloped by the bear hug. And I always remembered that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just happened to eat some recently because people like to prepare it up in honey and of course it's a southwestern herb primarily, Rocky Mountain herb. And but I took some and I gotta say right away, boom, it like turned on my adrenal cortex cortisol. So it would be good for asthma. It would tend to like, the way they use prednisone which is artificial cortisol. So it actually would switch you over into that, which I don't need because I'm got high blood sugar, and that would be a problem with that if I were on that all the time. But that shows it's also antiviral. It's warming. The reason it's a bear medicine is because it's a brown furry root that looks like a bear paw. It is oily and warming, and the bears supposedly, I've not watched myself. It's the kind of food they like in the spring when they come out of the cave. They wake up, they come out of the cave, and oh, what's going on? And I need something to get me going. And it's like it stimulates the mind, stimulates the cortisol, and has fat to put some fat on your maybe to help digest fats and oils, on your greater diet as you begin to eat more. So that's why one reason it's a bear medicine, but it looks like a bear medicine. And virtually all those bear medicines, they either have a brown furry oily root or they have a brown furry seed pod like our burdock uh burdock root or leaf for which is European, or licorice, which is worldwide. There's American, European, Asian licorice that has a brown, furry, oily root, and that all these generally if they are strong in oil, they support the adrenals, and adrenals is like that bear stamina, like rah, 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 rah. And
So you bring up a really interesting point, and that's like kind of using the plants in the season that we're at. So here we are in the hemisphere we're in, and we're in summer. What are
yeah.
some of the good plants and some of the good medicines that you talk about for summer?
Well, down there, down south, you've probably heard people say, "Oh yeah, I got high blood," however you say it. People say, "Oh, that's your imitation of a Southern accent." Well, high blood is when the blood goes to your head and you're out there on a hot summer day and you should be wearing a hat, which a lot of people in the South would be doing because the sun is beating down and the blood goes up to your head and you get kind of a full, heavy feeling in your head and maybe even you get a empty, kind of a number feeling in your feet at night or when you go in or when you relax. And so the blood's all up in your head and you got to bring that down. And that's nice cooling things. I'd say wild cherry bark would be one of the herbal things, but just a cherry liqueur would be one thing to use. Elderflower, elderberry, which is so well known for fevers and flus and stuff, but it's cooling as well. And golly, what was it I had yesterday that I felt was so good? Well, of course, all fruits are, this is their season. This is what we naturally take to cool off, and they do cool us off. And the berries are bear medicines as well. So that's a different season, a different food for that time. And the berries do cool us off. Oh, blueberry, of course, antioxidants. So it's really literally turning down the fire knob on set on the cells inside, as well as cooling us, giving us a cooler feeling as we, move that heat down from our head and so on. So any fruit at all would tend to, and then the faux fruits like rhubarb also count here, and yellow dock root, which is a cousin. It's not really a food. So yeah.
And then the animal medicine that goes with that, the folklore, the shamanic part of it.
Well, again, the berries would be another bear medicine again.
Hmm.
And that is where they are, that's just a different type of bear medicine, so to speak.
Yeah, I know Cameron used to have a remedy, and she probably still does, Cameron Strauss, called Alabama Heat. And it literally would do that. You could feel it going like this, just cooling you all the way down. You put some tinctures in your water. I have forgotten about that. I bet I have that. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
very good. Oh, I know. Yeah, one of the tremendous things that many Southerners would be familiar with all the way down into Latin America, Central South America, would be cucumber water. So you cut off the tips of the cucumber, slice it down the middle, spoon out the seeds, and then slice it lengthwise and put it in a jar, about 6 slices, about a jar like this. It happens. I got some water in here. And put it in the refrigerator after 3 hours. Oh, is that delicious? And I like cucumber
Mm.
better than cucumber. It absolutely has to be organic because I discovered once when I got something marked organic and it wasn't, that wow, you do get the poisons are leached out into the water from the cucumber. But otherwise, that's like that, yeah, herbal air
Yeah,
conditioner.
it can feel that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So not sure which animal that is. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just pointed out wild cherry trees on the property that I have where I had the medicine wheel and the little
Oh,
berries. It was like you could eat, and the little bit was so tiny too. It's like, oh my gosh, all these years and I never knew. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, they are extremely tasty, but they are very small.
They are very small. Those little pits were very small. I don't know if you'd swallow them or not, but yeah, they
Don't swallow
really
little
were.
bits. Yeah.
I know shamanism and the practice of it is like coming from the earth. So, where or how did you begin to bring all of this together? Was it just from being
Yeah.
born and being on the reservation and working with the Seminoles? Was it just that, or was there some other fascination? Was it something that came into your life to really help you open up more to that plant energy that way?
Well, really, when I was 13, I read The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. And boy, that was for me. I just said, oh, wow, I totally understand this. And those books only got better and better. They kind of went further and further into dream time as they go until finally his last book being in dreaming or the art of dreaming. And they really provide a course in shamanism, but he did not try to empower his students, or that wasn't his. I really think he tried to disempower his students, but that wasn't his mission, perhaps. He was just writing down everything that happened to him. And so really the crucial thing that makes that shamanism is a spiritual path, I'd say. And when you dream of your animal self or meet your animal self, it's almost always a dream, or in his case, a hallucination under the influence of a drug, psilocybin. when you meet your animal self, then your eyes and ears open up in the spiritual world because animality, animalness throughout all levels of creation, that's the sensory system. Like there was no sensory system really until animals came along, or they externalized that, they made that possible. And so sight, seeing, everything opens up when we move to that other dimension.
So I love that. And I love that understanding. And yes, I've read the Carlo Castaneda books. I'm a student of Toltec wisdom, the Don Miguel work, and a dreamer myself. And yeah, and I think it is important. And, I've had some experiences through plant medicine, the ayahuasca, the peyote, and some with nothing at all, but just having experiences and being in that dreaming world. But plants are very important and they're very helpful to us. I noticed you had a whole nother chapter too, or a whole nother subject in there about moon plants. Tell us a little bit about that and the mugworts.
Yeah, let's see. Well, in addition to there being animal medicines, there's kind of major features of Earth also get included, like sun plants, moon plants. I don't know any star plants, but so yeah, mugwort has long been associated with dreamtime, and it's a very sophisticated side of the moon. So the moon is our unconscious, and mugwort is really, first of all, on a really mundane level, so kind of and even then it's not very mundane, but the physical properties are for reconnecting, say when the autonomic nervous system is disconnected, like you don't have the urge to go to the bathroom, you get constipated, it's just sitting there because you're not feeling it, which some kids get. I don't like to use this remedy for kids because it's so kind of a heavy herb, but this is a problem for adults too. You just don't notice, and so you're not making that connection. So it helps to bridge the autonomic and the central nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And that's mugwort, which is a very powerful herb that way.
Used a lot in rituals, cleansing baths, rituals. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one's kind of a female remedy too. So it's the moon there too, or Venus. It's the original plant called Artemisia, named for the goddess of the moon and the midwife. And so it really goes back very far into ancient mythology, so to speak, which of course is not just mythology, but stories. It's part of that Fossick speech. It's part of that speech about that's in another dimension, that where you just you explain a story that helps a person later on when they meet with that energy, that, oh, that's what they were talking about. You've probably had that experience, like you hear something and you don't, it's like, oh, that's a great story, and then you like actually experience it and it's like, wow, I'm glad I heard that story. Yeah.
Yeah. A different way of bringing in that perception and understanding. That's kind of me, like
Yeah,
sometimes I feel like it takes me a minute, but it's because of the way in which I learn. So I
yeah,
totally get it. And I'm one from experience.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
recognizing that. Yeah.
I do want to point out, just because people familiar with the Castaneda books would tend to miss it, but it's in maybe Fire from Within, or one of the middle books where he has his vision. It's a coyote, which of course fits him perfectly because he's a trickster. And
Trickster.
yeah, and Don Juan, he goes back, after he's had his 24 hours of hallucination or whatever, and goes back to Don Juan and he says, well, that's it's not the best animal in the
You
world.
know what? Spirits are speaking to us all the time, and the awareness and the being in that consciousness and finding those signs and symbols. I mean, that's very much what I talk about in my path and things that have helped me. And I think the spirit world speaks to us. We go outside. I mean, I'm sure you have plants talking to you all day long, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, fortunately, they don't really raise their voices to where they interrupt me at all. I have had, yeah, there's a few times, yeah, the couple times when they just said something so loud and clear, like gravel root. You can tell I'm a turtle medicine, because just as Grandfather Turtle rose out of the sea in the beginning of time to create the first earth, so too do I rise out of the swamp to create the first soil. Arr. Well, life happens while you're living it, eh?
That is right. Life happens while we're living it. And you just really, I just love the way that you come at it from the language of the shamans, how you share these
Yeah.
accounts. I mean, like, even like, just tell us a little bit about alligator medicine. That kind of resonates with the Everglades, right? Of kind of where you started.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's a heavy one. That's powerful. That is really heavy duty shaman medicine, because as you know, as you learn in the Castaneda books, but it's in many other traditions too. You need to make a recapitulation of your life. And in fact, this is true on every single religious and spiritual path, is that you recapitulate, you relive to let go of the hurts that have happened to you and the way you've hurt other people as well. You have to go through all that, and as you relive it really deeply, somatically, so to speak, then and in dream time too, you are able to let go, and that frees you as you know, you have more and more energy at your disposal to work on your spiritual path and less barriers there. And that's alligator medicine because in the Egyptian gods and goddesses, the alligators are the lords of death. They grab just as the alligator grabs the prey, brings it underwater until it stops thrashing around, so too does death, or the beings of death grab us and they just won't let go until we deal with all our stuff. But that happens after death for most people. But one of the notes for the shaman is it happens before you die. You really take responsibility for your life and you start processing it like that. And I'd say that's almost one of the most strong characteristics of the shamanic path. And then comes the vision of the medicine animal. And that's kind of, and Don Juan actually said, you know, through all of life, you know, it's like you sort the man of knowledge is seeking for one great experience, and then boom, you know, and you live in the shadow of that. And I thought, like, well, I'm in favor of like all, you know, permanent, like, aren't we looking for illumination or something, permanent, you know, enlightenment or something? But no, actually, when you dream of that medicine animal, that is such a you then pass over into another world, into, you know, you're still living here in the normal world, but you have more eyes and ears in the spirit world in dream time. And dream time extends to the imagination as well. So, yeah, and actually, Angelica is one of the plants which opens the imagination, and that's thrown on the rocks in the sweat lodge. And the bear medicines, almost entirely, it's brown furry oily roots that are bear medicines that are thrown on the rocks in Native American sweat lodge ceremonies. And that one in particular kind of opens up the third eye, or the being the mental sphincter, like bing, just puts you into imagination. Plus, it opens up the sweat pores so that you sweat better, which is part of health. You have to be able to have your skin sweat, not sweat. I mean, if you live in Alabama and you can't sweat, well, you better move to another place.
Forget about it is right. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I hear you on that. Yeah. It gets so
yeah,
humid here. It definitely does.
yeah,
Well, I do
yeah,
find that fascinating and recapitulate. It reminds me of the Sorcerer's Crossing. I believe that was one of Don Juan's, the women's perspective of
yeah,
that. Talking
yeah.
about recapitulating all that energy from the womb. Yeah. Very
Oh,
fascinating. I
okay.
actually just
Yeah.
reread that book not too long
Oh,
ago.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So through your teachings, do you make remedies? Do you work with the plants that way? Is it more of your writing and your teachings? How do you kind of then put this into practice for you?
Yeah, well, I make remedies just for my own practice. I just don't want to hassle with, I don't even like sending remedies off in the mail and stuff, just too much of a hassle. And I've never lived right next to the post office anyways. So, but, you know, sometimes, so I prefer people to be able to acquire their herbs and wherever, if I'm having you know, if I'm doing a case history, you know, a consultation wherever, if they can, from the local herb store or online. Sometimes I have to send things out. But so I don't make too much, but I do garden, and I figure, well, first I'm looking at all the plants all the time. And I mean, I always say, herbalists have one foot in paradise. I mean, you're out there on your lawn and there's like plantain, the most like mundane thing at all. And you're like I was talking to Jim McDonald, another well-known herbalist, and he was just saying the herbalist, young student came up to him and said, "Well, have you found any good herbs to?" And he says, "Well, there's some plantain right there." It's like the most common herb there is. It's like even quackgrass is an herb. So, but so we're out there. Everybody else is like, "Oh, this weed is such a nuisance," and we're like, wow, you could do this and that with it, or I remember this case history, or like, you know, truly, it's like you're in paradise with the herbs when you're an herbalist. You're halfway, one foot in, you know. So, and you know, and I think of her paradise is like Garden of Eden. It is like dream time. It is like it's just that wonderful world, where the nature spirits are, where the plant spirits, the animal spirits, and the human spirits that want to be part of the greater collective good, because not all of them want to be there. A lot of them, I want to do it my way. I want to be separate. And it's like, yeah, okay, go off in your dismal little corner of the universe and pout about it and do it your way.
I think there's many approaches that we can take. And I know for me, I kind of joke about myself because I love to be in the garden. And right now, I don't know what it is about me, but it's like no matter what I do, either overwater, underwater, I can't get anything to grow. But talk about moving rocks. I am your mover of rocks. I love to make the rock gardens and to make the paths and the labyrinths and the medicine
Oh,
wheel. And then I feel like
oh,
the diva energy. I feel the medicine come forward anyway, but not so much with that green thumb. Like my dad had it, but it's like,
yeah,
where's mine? So I do maintain a yard and learning. I'm constantly learning. And sometimes I do better with herbs. I tend to grow more herbs than, vegetables and stuff like that. But I do love to be outside and I do love to be in
yeah,
that place of receiving the messages of the plants, the energy, the rocks, the ground, Mother Earth, the
yeah,
elements.
yeah,
So I think there's many ways to look at it. And I think that's one of the things that your book is showing too. The legends, the medicines, the plants that come with it, the animals that then reinforce it, and the way in which we can bring different teachings alive is really important.
yep, yep. And the legends are real. In fact, I ended up well through the book. I went back and changed. I just called it Legend, capital Len. You know, uh, it's not just stories. That these stories have significance. So you got to get over that. If those of you out there, I'm not talking to you. Those of you out there don't take stories seriously yet. Boy, there's a lot of wisdom in the most simple story.
Yeah, and I looked at that with the title of your book too, because I feel like it was like a shamanic herbal. And it gave it more importance. And it reminded me, I mentioned that to you, but it also now, as you're talking, reminds me like lots of times when we talk about animal totems, we don't say the eagle, we say eagle
Yeah,
or we say lion, and it gives it that importance.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, actually, so there's a really interesting passages in there that show that this is exactly the spiritual path of Rudolf Steiner. And he talks about this as you get closer and closer to this illumination, you begin to think of animals differently. And instead of horses, it's horse. And and all the animals like that. And you see animals differently. And he doesn't have words for it because even the word totem was not yet used in English very much in the early 20th century. It was used, but not it's certainly in anthropology. Even then, it's a misquote. It's not used correctly. It's an Ojibwe word from up here, Anishinaabe, and it's not used correctly, but it still is close to its original meaning: a totem animal, a representative of a clan or guild or society, or of a medicine or power of nature, a force of nature. Yeah, and so that's what that is, and he doesn't have words for it, so it's kind of quaint, I have to say, when he's trying to tell an audience in 1915, in German. So
It's still quite here we are in 2024 trying to tell
yeah,
audiences sometimes. And all the autocorrect that one autocorrected out. I remember I had Stephen Farmer on the show, and he was the first one that really made a point about
uh,
that in terms of me and him talking, right? That it is not the lion, it's lion or the eagle. And so I do believe that's also too what you're saying, like with legend, like making it like this is, and it becomes more of a statement of it, of the account. And I think that is kind of really cool to get back to the roots. It's kind of like the root of where it is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
So we could go on and on, but do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite plant or favorite medicine there?
Well, I love turtle medicine. Turtle medicine's so good. So turtle, they say Turtle Island, that North America sits on the back is a turtle, but actually throughout the world, turtle is the basis. The world is said to sit on the back of an enormous turtle, and so we have pillars, and they have that little round footing around them in a circle, and that represents a turtle. Originally, when they made pillars, they put them on a little picture of a little carving of a turtle, and turtle was looked upon as what the earth sits upon. And this famous passage, Stephen Hawking, the rationalist scientist, and they used to think that the earth sat on the back of an enormous turtle, ha, 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 laughing like scientists do it, like, like obviously they're irrational. And this old lady stood up in the back of the audience and she said, "Young man, you may think you know a lot, but let me tell you, it's turtles all the way down." But
How funny.
now there's a book on turtles all the way down.
Turtles all the way down. Yeah. From the Big Bang to the turtles, right? Yeah. Hello.
The tree of life sits on the back of a turtle, so it's really the universe of creation. Paleontologists would say turtle is the main stem from which the warm-blooded animals came. And we think, oh, we're humans, we have a heart, etc. Believe me, the heart came from the warm-blooded animals, not from us. We just have this crazy mind. That's all that we added. They have families, they pair for a season or a lifetime. They raise their young, they train their young. They have all the good traits that human beings have, and then they don't have this. And people say, well, do you think that plants are conscious? It's more like, well, it's more like we're unconscious and they are
I
conscious.
agree. I agree. Yeah. 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 I do. I agree. Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. Used to work in New York in jewelry, and I worked for this amazing Michael Michaud, this amazing designer who worked with plants. And people would send him plants all over. And he had a technique for taking the wax and casting these plants, but he would pull them apart and he would look at exactly how they'd grow. And I used to source for him, and he'd have me like get in each stage
Oh,
of
wow.
how it grew in order to understand it. But yeah, it was fascinating. And we had many discussions about that because he would like break out of nowhere because he'd feel this plan he needed to go see. And we would joke, like, yeah, they're talking to you, Michael, they're talking to you. But
Yeah.
his work was fascinating. And it really did
Yeah.
take us into that and listening to some of the information. This goes way back for me. Yeah, for sure.
Michael,
Definitely.
what's his last name? He may not still be alive, but I'd just be interested in.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
Michael Michaud. I'm not that old. He's still alive.
Oh,
Michaud out of he's in Connecticut. His
yeah.
work came out of New York, but he's in like all the galleries and the National History and the Met, and his work is absolutely amazing. And he would just recreate it. He came from casting background. I don't know if anything about jewelry, but because of that, he was able, I mean, his collections had so many molds, but he was able to really go through each of those phases for each collection that he did. But we had many
Wow.
conversations about that because we would joke, I break for plants, right? That was on like if he had a bumper sticker. And we would often talk
Yeah.
about they must be calling you, they must be calling you. And so we would talk about that. Does it
Yeah.
have consciousness? I truly believe they are. And I remember asking, Cameron, when
Yeah.
she was on the show too, like, what do you think? Like, of course, I think. Like I can hear them outside too for me, and I hear the divas of the world, but I think that's part of tuning into Mother Earth, right? And getting
Yeah.
out of that limited belief that so many people hold. And I think that's kind of the point of your book too, is having a different perspective on life right now. We need it. Yeah.
We sure do. Yeah. And I actually do believe that the earth it's not waking up. She's already woken up. Right in the first like couple months of the COVID event way back in March 2020, I remember I felt this happiness coming out of the earth. Happiness. I felt happy. Like, what? And next day, happy. I asked my hostess because I was teaching in New Mexico, do you feel this happiness coming out of the earth? And she said, oh, yeah, a couple people felt that. And then I talked to some friends on two of them separately. One of them said, they both said, oh yeah, well, the Earth has finally gotten back in contact with the galactic center. Like it's now, she's herself again. So we're like little fleas on the back of the dog and we have to cooperate. She's already made her shift and so we're like kind of under the judgment of the earth and and the heavens above God and Mother Earth right now, and we have to come through this time period. And polarization is what comes before reconciliation of opposites is kind of the first step on the spiritual path. If I may recommend my first book, Seven Herbs, Plants as Teachers, I go through that. First step is reconciliation of opposites. Oh, I don't need to be perfect. I can embrace these two opposite things within me. And that's what our society needs to do right now. But right now, they're like really at each other's throats. We're right. No, we're right. And
It feels like we're in a holding pattern. Like everybody's holding on to the old ways. They know they need change, but they don't know what to do. That's what I'm sensing. Like it's like just
yeah,
everything's on hold, but we can't live like that. That's not how life is. Everything is constantly
yeah,
changing. And so then it creates that opposing force of energy. And it's like, yeah, when COVID hit and who was in
yeah,
presidency, it was like we kept getting more and more and more. And it's like, when is it going to snap? It's kind of even like the Taoist point of view, too. It's like it's going to eventually kind of snap, right back. But I remember feeling that too. And it was when COVID hit and like the world quieted. And I remember going up to this property that I tend the medicine wheel, and I don't think I'd ever seen it so gorgeous.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The green and the little flowers, and it was fall and lush. And I remember like, oh my gosh, I've never seen it this beautiful. So there was something about that for sure.
Yeah. Some years are like that. And I have seen other years, and this is a lush green year here, so we have so much rainfall. But yeah, so special things happening, and the earth that was a happy year for the earth that she's continuing, and we have to keep up with her.
We do have to keep up with her. But yeah, I am. My mother came from farmers, so I'm constantly always monitoring the weather. And she always did too, all of her life. Not that she needed to, but it was one of those generational energies that just come in, always recognizing the weather. And
Yeah.
I love the elements. And again, tending the medicine wheel is one of the things that really gives me a sense of back to earth for sure. And one of these days, I'm going to learn how to garden. I am. I just know I am, right?
Start
Yeah,
with
for
earth. They're
sure.
forgiving.
Well, I don't know. I had a garden in New York. Maybe I don't know what it was, but all my herbs grow really well. And I remember going up to Canada and Seattle up there. I think it was even in Hawaii, seeing lavender farms. And it's always been a dream of mine to have a lavender farm.
Yeah.
And here in Alabama, it's so humid. You have to get the Spanish lavender, and I still cannot grow it. I've yet to grow it. In the 5 years I've been in this house, my mother's house was a little different. I don't know why, but I don't know the soil. Who knows? But I don't know. So I will at one point. Maybe it's just finding the right piece of land and the right loving environment or something. I don't know. But I still try. I still get out there and I'll move rocks all day long. So yeah, move a rock, shift some energy. That's kind of what I look at it as for sure. Yeah.
Well, you got good teachers there, Joanna, and is it Travis or Trevor? I can't remember.
It's Trevor, Joanne and Trevor. They're great teachers, and Cameron Strauss too, a great teacher. And yeah, there are many now, many that have studied with them and have gone on, like Gwendolyn Griffin that I was talking about. She's one of their students too, and I think it was Cameron. Yeah, but a lot of people now are more and more opening up. Just Garmin, she's another one. She has a podcast and she'll really get into the spirit of the animal, and she'll talk about, like, I remember one of the dandelion ones. She'll get into how the plant is actually feeling. So it has trickled down to a lot of people, and I think we need it. I know we need it. I'm not one on medicines, the traditional pharmaceutical medicines, but the plant medicine is waking up with my teas. And, right now I'm kind of into the whole idea of the mushrooms, the mushroom coffees and the mushroom, the
Yeah.
proteins and that mix with the mushrooms and all of that. And I know how much it's helped me for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, where can we find your work? Where would you like to direct us? And are you teaching? You have an online
Yeah, I
school?
have an online school that's Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism.com. Yeah. And you can get my books, well, through Amazon, or I think on my website we set up on that site, or through my publisher is Inner Traditions.
I love inner traditions. They give so many people opportunities to express their work and bring this forward for all of us. Yeah,
Right. Uh,
definitely. Yeah. So, Matthew, as we go to close, I like to just kind of round it up and just ask, and we've talked about it. We've talked about it through your mission and what you're doing, but how would you say that working with the shamanic herbal, the plant teachers, and the animal medicines can help to empower the spirit right now?
Oh, well, yeah, we don't have to take hallucinogens. You can if you want, but each plant is like a reference point for consciousness and points back in some way to the spirit world. Each one represents a spiritual entity there on the other side, and they are there and we are not, and we can follow them, whether they're a plant or an animal. We can learn by tuning in, and they are still in paradise, and we can follow them into that world. So, yeah, so I would say through just simple meditating with plants, it's really good to study with a bunch of, with say a half a dozen to a dozen people. Like you give your impressions, what do you feel, et cetera, et cetera. So there are groups of people studying plant, spirit medicine, sacred plant medicine, whatever, out there. And that's to many people, that's kind of the shamanic herbalism.
I love that reference point for consciousness. Yeah,
Yeah. That's what
definitely.
I deduced when I read the teachings of Don Juan. Oh, plants are reference points for consciousness. They're not going to change. Give them 200 million years and they'll change a little. Like I was we tune into plants and sometimes you get stuff you weren't really thinking about. Like Hawthorne said to me, I'm studying from the oak how to be a tree. And I was like, oh, well. I'll check in with you 200 million years from now. And then I thought, where will I be? What will I be? What is my world in 200 million years? That's about as long as it takes a planet to evolve, something like that.
That is out there. That is for sure. But these teachings will live on as our Earth has lived on too. They're still growing way beyond us, right? We don't own the land. That is for sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, I am honored to have had this conversation with you. I'm so grateful to the work that you're bringing out into the world. Thank you so much. Yeah, to your spirit.
Yes. Okay. Well, nice meeting you, and maybe I'll meet you down in Alabama because I have more friends in Alabama than a lot of Northerners too. I have to say.
Well, there you go. Anytime, come back. I would definitely like that for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Each plant is a reference point towards consciousness. We can follow and learn by tuning in. The plants continue to grow and are still living in this beautiful paradise, the magic of Mother Earth. We can learn so much by simply sitting and meditating with her. Be sure to check out his work as well as all the local herbalists. Thanks again for listening. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman, to your spirit. Namaste. Hey y'all, I wanted to remind you of Freddie Silva's new class, The Bridge Between Material and Magic. Step into 1,000 journeys and discover places on the land where the laws of physics behave differently and the perception of overlapping realities is both apparent and immediate. Experience how these powerful energy centers interact with your body and consciousness, enhancing your awareness and connection to the self and the infinite. Module 1, Solar Energy Landscapes. Module 2, Portals and Sacred Spaces. Module 3, Interacting with Portals. Module 4, Identifying the Life Force, plus the bonus, a PDF copy of Freddie Silva's best-selling book, Portals, Energetic Doorways to Mystical Experiences Between Worlds, to which I am a contributing author. I'll drop the link for the program in the show notes.